Namaskar, it's me Virendra Kumar Limbu. Today I'm going to make a short presentation on the essay Translation and the Trials of the Quran by Anton Bormann. Now, before discussing about the essay, let's talk about some of the key terms. The first one is deforming forces. Deforming forces are those factors which causes change in translated text. For example, rationalization and expansion and so on. Now, next one is the foreign. The foreign means something others, not ours. In translation, when source language is translated into another language, some words are written in translated text. They become new for the target language readers, and they are known as foreign. For example, in Limbu sentence, Anga Mundum Nirung, this can be translated as Mom Mundum Potsu in Nepali, and I read the Mundum. Here, in both Nepali and English translations, the term Mundum, which is Limbu term, has been written in both translation, and the term Mundum may become new and strange for the both Nepali and English readers. Now, in this way, the term Mundum may become foreign for them. And next one is literal translation. Literal translation is a kind of word for word translation in which source language words are translated into target language with equivalent, replacing with or translating with equivalent terms. For example, Limbu phrase Keba Kogma. This can be translated into Nepali as a Lato Pahad, in which Keba is translated as Lato and Kogma is translated as Pahad, and in English translation, the Dome mountain. The next key term is textual deformation. Textual deformation means the change in whole text. When source language text is translated into target language, some changes occur in whole text, which is known as textual deformation. Translation and the Trials of the Foreign was written by Anton Bormann, who was French translator, philosopher, historian, and theorist of translation. And it was translated into English by Lawrence Venuti. He is an American translation theorist, translation historian, translator, educator, and author. And Venuti favors foreignization instead of domestication. Foreignization, as we already discussed, the term foreignization is the strategy in translation in which source language words are written into target language text or translated text. For example, in the same Limbu sentence, Anga Mundum Nirung, it can be translated as Mom Mundum Potsu in Nepali and I read the Mundum in English, in which both translation, the term Mundum has been written, and the term Mundum may become new and strange for the both Nepali and English readers. This kind of strategy in which source language terms are written is known as foreignization. And domestication is just opposite of foreignization, source language words are written in translated text, while in domestication, source language terms are translated into target language for the ease of target language readers, so that they can comprehend or understand the translated text. For example, Limbu term Mundum, it can be translated as Ved in Nepali, and it also can be translated as the Bible in English. Here, Mundum does not mean Ved, and Mundum does not mean the Bible. But for the ease of Nepali readers, it can be translated as Ved, and for the ease of English readers, it can be translated as the Bible, because these all books are holy books in particular cultures. And this essay, Translation: The Trials of the Foreign, according to Bormann, translation is a kind of trial of the foreign, because it is a trial work of changing source language words into target language. Now, Bormann claims that especially literary translation, is very liable to naturalization. Source language literary texts are translated into target language, and While translating, some naturalization uh, process takes place there. Naturalization strategy is used in which source language words are changed according to the target language pronunciation system or writing system. For example, English word biscuit is read or written as biscuit in Nepali. Similarly, English word school is pronounced as school in Nepali. Here we can see some sound adjustment, and this is a kind of naturalization. Now, according to Berman, translation is both trial of the foreign and trial for the foreign. Now, according to Berman, there are different deforming forces. Now, he has discussed 12 deforming forces in this essay. The first one is rationalization, second one is clarification, and other expansion, ennoblement, qualitative impoverishment, quantitative impoverishment, the destruction of the rhythms, the destruction of underlying networks of signification, the destruction of linguistic patternings, destruction of vernacular networks or their exoticization, the destruction of expression and idioms, effacement of the superimposition of languages, and so on. Now, here we are going to discuss some of them. Now, first one is rationalization. Rationalization means making rational according to the target language. Especially, it focuses on syntactic structure of the original text. For example, in Limbu sentence, Anga Mundum Nirung. Here we can see first one Anga is subject, Mundum is object, and Nirung is verb. It can be translated as Mom Mundum Padsu in Nepali and I read the Mundum in English. Here in Limbu sentence, subject, object, verb pattern is there, but in target language, that means here English, I am focusing on English, I read the Mundum, subject, verb, object pattern. Now both give the sense, but here sentence pattern is different. Now this is a kind of rationalization in the sense that here structure is changed according to the target language structure. Source language structure is changed according to target language structure. Now next one is clarification. Clarification means making something more. Every translator tries to make every translated text more clearer than the original text, make using some explanations, using some footnotes, and so on. Now next one is expansion. Now in the name of or while translating source language into translate target language, certainly some clarifications are made. Because of such clarification, translated text becomes a little bit longer than the source text. For example, in the Limbu sentence, Anga Mundum Nirum, here only three words are there in the source sentence or source language sentence. When it is translated as I read the Mundum, English readers may not understand this sentence. I read the Mundum. What is Mundum? For the each of them, this can be explained, and it becomes like this. I read the Mundum. Mundum, the holy scripture of Kirat Limbu people. Now, in this way, source language has become more longer than target translated text has become more longer than source text. Now, similarly, next example, Keba Kokma. Here only two words are there, but in its translation, we can see the Dome Mountain. There are three words. Now, next one is ennoblement. Ennoblement means making something noble, new. Okay, and generally this takes place. This is a kind of poetization in poetry and rhetoricization in prose. While translating poems and other literary texts, certainly some words should be explained, and when it is translated into another language, some kind of changes occur, some kind of newness occur, some kind of creation occurs, especially in poetic translations. Okay, if there are any queries and we can discuss. Thank you.